we've got, let's see here, 12 players, 6 overrated, 6 underrated. We'll start on the overrated side of the scale here. And the first guy you have on here is a guy that's been talked about quite a bit already, even though we're relatively early into the draft process. It's Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of TCU. He's been talked about because on most draft boards, he's wide receiver 1. He's definitely, depending on who you ask, in that top, upper echelon of guys in this relatively weak wide receiver class. Definitely a guy that you'd expect to see go in the first round just because of the necessity and the value of that position. But you think that he's a little bit overrated. Tell me about, what you see in Quentin Johnston that gives you a little pause.
So Quentin Johnston is 12th on the consensus board, and he's 22nd on my board. He definitely has the best traits of any of the top wide receivers. Probably going to run in the 4.3s or low 4.4s, and he's 6'4". But there's just, a lot of drops on his tape. I think he had 8 drops this past season. Does not play to his size at the catch point at all. I think he has a lot of work to do when it comes to technique with route running. When he runs a curl route, he needs a couple extra steps to stop his momentum. His breaks on like a dig route are just not that crisp. I don't really see him creating separation in that way against NFL corners. And then he's also really upright at the line of scrimmage. He's a big target, and it's really easy for corners to get their hands on his chest and slow down his route development. And so there's just a lot of red flags on his tape. And I think that he's the consensus wide receiver 1. I don't think having him as your wide receiver 1 is a terrible, I don't even know that I necessarily disagree with that, because I'm not in love with Jordan Addison, JSN, really any of those top guys. But yeah, I think him just being the runaway favorite as the first wide receiver, I think I would disagree with that.
Yeah, I just went and pulled it up because we started talking about this, and then I realized I remembered this tweet of yours from 3 or 4 days ago talking about your film breakdown on Johnston, which I guess you have a video out on him already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a guy that you described in the tweet as one of the most boom bust players in the draft, and I'm sitting here looking at your mock-up or your visual for your evaluation of the player from the tape that you've studied, and the list of strengths and weaknesses is tremendous. Like, there's so many things that you both loved and kind of hated about him, or maybe not hated, but gave you a little bit of pause that you found a little concerning. Ultimately, what do you think? Who did you comp him with in the NFL? Who do you think he may end up becoming? Maybe on the high end if he were to pan out as an NFL player, or maybe there's a guy that you see him potentially being if it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, so what I like to do with my comps is I like to give as many comparisons as I think fit, and it's less like this player is going to become this player. It's more like, here's a bunch of different kind of potential outcomes of what type of player he could be in the NFL. So the ones I had for Quentin Johnston, I've got Kevin White, Christian Watson, Terrace Marshall, Preston Smith, and Martavis Bryant. So, I mean, I think, similar to kind of like Christian Watson last year just had terrible ball skills, but he was super fast and just big,
monster speed. Right.
I think, Quentin Johnston is he has better hands than Christian Watson, but him, or I really do see Preston Smith. I don't know if you even remember that player, but he played honestly, for the Dolphins for a while, and
so
he went to Tennessee, and then he transferred to Colorado. And he might have been in the 2018, 2019 draft, kind of a late round pick, and he had some success early with Miami. But yeah, it's kind of I don't see him really having a complete enough skill set to where I see him being, I don't see it being a very likely outcome that he's a complete wide receiver 1. I think to me, the realistic high end for Quentin Johnston is kind of an inconsistent low end wide receiver 1.